Western New York is rich in opportunities for seeing and participating in dance. Today in the spotlight, Robert Royce, the ballet master for the New York State Ballet, joins me. Welcome here, Rob. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me, Eric.
Boy, and it's a great environment for dance in Rochester and the surrounding region.
The arts in general. It was wonderful. I moved here about maybe a year and a half ago, and I drove down Monroe Avenue and saw all of the park benches that are this beautiful ironwork.
Yes.
It excited me just to be able to be in a city where I can create art, where art is so easily welcomed into our community and supported by the community.
Right.
You know, creating art anywhere is always an adventure. Finding a market, finding a niche, all of that, but then to see a city that wants to try art and sample it on such a large scale has really been a joy.
So tell us about the New York State Ballet. How long in existence?
Well, New York State Ballet is about a 5-year-old organization. The professional company has really been growing over the past 4 years. You know, the first year getting their feet wet, and then it's amazing to see what these young dancers and what Katie Pulaski, the artistic director, and Sarah Rothrock-Rickel, the associate director, have done to grow this company into what we see today.
Oh, I see.
Creating art that is not just story ballets, but actually taking some chances and doing some collaborations. You know, working with opera and just finding new ways to create art. And the dancers are strong. The dancers are this great group. When I first met them all, of 19, 20-year-olds who are now in their early 20s and have really taken that step into the professionalism that they want to have.
Oh, I see.
You know, growing a company is a very slow process, but the first steps that you take are getting these dancers from student into that professional mindset. And these dancers are these strong young professionals now who take chances and put themselves into their art in such a beautiful and strong and powerful way. It's an easy process to create pieces when you have greedy, young, hungry dancers that are ready to just hop in there and do whatever they are asked.
And where are they coming from?
Well, the wonderful thing about most professional companies is that you get this huge, diverse group of people. We have a young lady from Brazil. We have people from Ohio. We have people from the area. When you audition for a ballet company, open auditions, we get videos, we get people dropping in on a constant basis. And then it's weeding through all of those and seeing where we are with our budget and where we are with our needs. You know, maybe that year we need a 6'4" dancer because we got a 6-foot lady dancing and we need somebody to partner.
Yep.
So we have all these different needs every year, and with all the information that we get with all of these auditions, it's really a jump for these dancers to pick up stock, come on to Rochester, and like take the adventure of being in a new company. It's a very odd kind of gypsy lifestyle that we lead.
And so where does the training happen, and where are the classes? Or
So our studios at the moment are in Brighton Commons.
Brighton Commons.
And right there in the middle of 5 Points there, 5 Corners, sorry. But the studios are there, and we rehearse from 9:30 in the morning until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And then the school, Ballet Prestige, takes over the studios at that point, and we have our whole training academy for the company, where we have students from 5-year-olds all the way up to 18-year-olds.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the school and the company work together on a number of programs. In this upcoming season, we'll be doing Alice in Wonderland, we'll be doing Nutcracker, and Aladdin. All of those will have kids in them at some point. And then every year that kind of becomes, you know, a tradition, especially with Nutcracker.
Nutcracker,
You know, across the board you have, you know, these great full scenes with the professional companies and the young dancers dancing together. I grew up in a similar situation where I was a young male dancer. In a studio that had a company attached.
Right.
So I had all these great role models that were out there working hard every day, and it really, from a young age, changes the mentality on how they want to approach what will become their work. My ballet teacher always says that she's trained more doctors and lawyers than she ever has dancers,
Yeah.
but they're really good doctors and lawyers.
Yeah, yeah.
All by the mentality of,
Right.
of how they work, how the pros work in the studio, and then how the kids see that work and emulate that.
Well, now, Nutcracker is a Russian ballet. Are you in the Russian school of dance, or is there a philosophy that guides the training?
One of the biggest philosophies at the school for Ballet Prestige is just to keep a healthy mentality.
I see.
There's a lot of different training styles that go into ballet,
Sure.
and as ballet has become a more inclusive art form, which is wonderful, it's gone away from every company just doing classical ballets or just doing contemporary ballets. When I was growing up, you had Balanchine companies and you had Russian companies, and that was it.
Right.
That's no longer the case. Every company does everything. So as we train dancers now, we have to train them in that mentality. They have to know every style. They have to be able to train in all of these styles. And the big thing is that they have to hold on to their drive and love of dance. I talk to my students all the time in school about never losing that 5-year-old. That 5-year-old comes in the studio and just like loves it and is dancing around and may do every step wrong, but they're living that moment.
Right.
Finding that and keeping that, I think in any artist, I think that moment that sparked that interest and sparked that love for you, we have to keep that in the training. And it's across the board. We work these kids really hard. I mean, we push them, we make sure that they're doing the technique right. But at the same point, we have to make sure that they are keeping that love of it. And it's really a driving force in the training academy. You know, that we really want to make sure that we have this environment where people continue that love of dance and continue that strength of training at the same time.
Oh boy, it's really an athletic demand, too, to train for dance.
It truly is. My original ballet teacher was ex-military, used to paint houses, and oh yeah, found ballet. John Dennis, my teacher in North Carolina, he's an amazing man. And one of the strongest human beings I've ever met. We train every day. I mean, once you hit about 13, 14 years old, you're in the studio at least 5 days out of the week, if not 6. For male dancers, especially, on top of that, you have gym. You have to go to the gym. You have to get your body, keep your body in that kind of shape for all of the partnering.
Right.
Where ladies have a different restraints and different needs that they have, they still need to have strong backs. So a lot of the cross training that we do is on top of the many hours that we put into the gym.
So you're talking about lifts.
Yep, Puron Lifting. It's very interesting. There's a technique to partnering like everything else. So in that training, you don't have to, you know, look like a bodybuilder. You don't need to be massive, but you have to have the coordinated, it's a lot of quick twitch muscle fiber. You have to have that to be able to do these lifts. You have to have timing and coordination and then just some pure athletic strength, you know. And as we train as dancers, finding the balance between the athlete and the artist is one of the keys in moving up and moving forward through your artistic journey.
It seems like young men everywhere want to have flashy moves and things, and they find that as a youngster, and then somewhere along the line they quit dancing. And I was wondering how you keep men involved in becoming ballet dancers.
That's a very tricky question. It's different for every individual. Luckily, we're in a society now that I feel like is more open to having men in dance. I think we've gone past some of the stereotypical things that we dealt with back in the 80s and the 90s. It's different for every guy as they come in the studio because every person is approaching it from a different place. There has to be, I feel like with every dancer, there has to be a good balance between success and struggle. If you're only successful, you get bored. If you're only struggling, you get defeated. And for male dancers, especially, I think when we all grow up, one of the first things that you put guys in is baseball and football and things like that. We have a competitive mindset. To put that competitive mindset into yourself only and put it into the ballet studio where you can compete with yourself, the self that you were yesterday. You did that yesterday. You did 4 pirouettes yesterday. what are we going to do? 5 today? Let's play this. And finding that success ratio and that struggle ratio where they can fight, but they also always feel accomplished. You know, and that's, it's just like a baseball season. If you see a baseball team that hasn't won a game in 10 games, they are defeated as can be.
Right.
If you see that team that's only won, they get a little arrogant and they're like, yeah, and then they let it go and somebody beats them. It's the same mentality. It's finding that balance in the ballet dancer where I feel like I can do this. And, all right, I need to do the work that gets into that. You know, it's really training a worker mentality, you know.
You know, how about body image for the women? You know, so many attenuated body images for females out there nowadays. Is it the same for dancers? It used to be.
It's better now. I would say maybe 10 to 15 years ago, the world changed in dance. And I don't know what the exact pivot point was, but part of the question that you asked before about the athletic mentality became more open. We want to see, the world has changed a bit to seeing women as women and strong women in the ballet world, and men as strong men in the ballet world, but also being able to show subtlety and all of the character changes that happen throughout dance. The great thing now is that health comes first. In almost all the companies, I have a number of friends who run larger companies and smaller companies across the U.S., and in all the companies, that health comes first mentality is there. And in some companies, actually, which is the opposite of back in the 70s and 80s, they're doing weigh-ins for dancers to make sure they don't lose any more weight.
And it's important diet to be working on that all the time.
Well, you need food in you to get muscle growth. I mean, it's just that simple. You need nutrition to get muscle growth. And we're really, as a blanket statement across the dance world, we're really driving that point home with our young dancers through training and into the professional companies. Everyone, it's a very interesting art form we have. As a dancer, it's a very odd job. You're half dressed, you walk into a room and look in a mirror and critique yourself. That's our job. I mean, it's really strange.
Yeah, not a lot of people could do that.
So of course there's going to be imaging issues. When you look at yourself, one of the things that I teach and the way that I work with dancers is we can restructure the way your muscle works. If you want longer muscle, work longer. If you need to like be bulkier, work a little tighter. Like find that balance to have the body you want. It's steering towards a stronger, leaner, whatever the look is that you're going for, work in that fashion. It's not about weight. It's about how you work to build the body that you want.
It's functional strength.
Exactly, exactly. It's functional strength. You know, if you want long, lean muscle, you have to work long and lean. And that whole mentality, I think, is spreading across the U.S. especially.
I see. And it's possible to overtrain, too, I should imagine. You need guidance on the other end of it as well.
Yes. And on the other end of the spectrum, one of the hardest things for dancers to learn is good pain, bad pain. Finding what is good pain or what is just something that I need to monitor. So there's basically 3 levels of pain for dancers. There's good pain, which is this is getting worked, it's growing, it's, you know. And then there's that you've gone a little too far and you need to monitor it. And then there's the other end of the spectrum where something's wrong. And really trying to find which category each moment goes into. You know, because as odd as it sounds, we're in a constant like state of something's going on here. You know, I mean, you're using your muscles, you're working every day for 5 to 6 hours a day. There's going to be fatigue in your body, but you have to figure out what level that truly is.
Right, that's the kind of schedule an Olympic athlete might keep, for instance.
Yes, it's especially as we get closer to shows and things get busier and busier, we are on par with most professional athletes in general.
That explains why it takes a while to build a professional company. I mean, there's an enormous amount of conditioning involved.
Well, it's also the fact that most ballets, you need a certain number of people, and then what ballets for the people you have in the room work.
Yes.
You know, it's always, you know, if you only had 5 sopranos, you can only do so many things. It's that same kind of thing, you know. We have certain people who, all of our dancers, I feel, are, the company that we're working with now is incredibly talented. we watched a bit of rehearsal the other day, and Sarah and I were sitting in front of the room, and we were about to give notes, and we both were just sitting there in awe of watching them. We actually got stuck being the audience for a minute. We stopped giving notes, and we just were in awe of these dancers working, and how much artistry they've brought to the table. The change of that in a year is glorious. In 2 years, I mean, you see this growth as dancers, and it's wonderful to see, you know, but there's a certain amount of just who fits where, what dancer works for this part, what dancer, in casting, that's always our struggle, and it's a beautiful struggle to have.
Yeah.
Let me have 5 dancers who I say, they'll all do that part well, because then that's great work for us, you know?
And there's musicality involved. I mean, somebody might be a good athlete or a good technical dancer, but you have to be musical as well in dance.
Well, and that's the balance of being athletic and being artistic. You know, musicality is one of the first things you look for when you see a dancer audition for a company.
Now, what do you mean by that? You know?
Musicality is more than just hearing the counts. For us, we count music completely differently than musicians do, and it makes the conversation when you use live orchestra always interesting. Yeah. But it's not just hearing the counts, but it's also being able to interpret the note the note that's on that count. So being able to feel the ebbs and the flows of the movement, doing the dynamic work that really is what is awe-inspiring to an audience. An audience, some are educated in dance, some are not. Right. My favorite thing to hear from an audience is when they go, oh, that part, that one section, I loved it. I have no idea why, but it just talked to me. That's where musicality and artistry come from. That moment is what inspires an audience with them not even knowing it. They're sucked into that moment. We did Carmina Burana and Carmen over at the Lyric Theater, and it was an amazing time to work with a full orchestra and to work with the singers and to have the dancers really be able to, right there on spot, have a soloist singer while they're dancing a solo, and to see them work, not just the music, not just the notes, but to actually be able to ride how the singer was holding the note that day, and then come back away from that and really take the journey. When you work with live orchestra, it's like being in the car together. Yep. The two of you are going in the same direction. There ain't nothing you can do about it, right? So you might as well enjoy the trip. Yeah. You know, and it really is finding that musicality and that artistry. I think we have a video clip from Carmina, but finding that artistry in that moment and just making sure that you're not just hearing the counts, which is what we do in corps de ballet work. In corps de ballet work, it's regimented. The body of the ballet, everybody, same steps, same count, same steps, same count. Then you get to start manipulating and really going into the texture of what the note is saying. Great.
Well, I think we have a clip of that, so let's have a look at the clip of Carmina Burana. So that was a memorable experience, I'm sure, to create the choreography for that piece.
So when I was 22 or 23, I just started choreographing. I choreographed a couple small pieces and was really just, I never knew I wanted to be a choreographer. I just kind of started doing it because I thought it might be something interesting. Sure. And I thought I'd do a piece or two and probably go crazy and not want to deal with it because it is such a structure. I fell in love with it. I thought that being a dancer was really my true love, and I think in so many ways it was, and I loved performing, and I still do. But choreographing and creating, I think, was truly where this whole path has led me. And in my early 20s, I got the idea that I wanted to choreograph a Carmina. I'm so happy I didn't do it back then because I didn't have any of the tools I have now. And then when I first met Katie, she threw out the idea of, what do you think about doing a Carmina Burana? And I jumped on the idea. At that point, I didn't know that we were going to be using live orchestra and live singers. This whole little spark, this little seed of an idea grew into this massive and beautiful experience, both for audience and for all of us who were involved in it. Carmina Burana especially has it's a story of humanity. It's a story of how we deal with every aspect of our life and how we grow through that time. And working with the singers and working with the orchestra, they all feel the same about the piece. They feels like you're saying something. And that, I think, as artists, is the first thing that the first reason we get into creating any kind of art is I have something to say. Right. And Carmina Burana was written in that same vein. It's these statements on society that hold true from then until now. It was an incredible experience to research all of the pieces that we used in it and to really see how I could create work that everyone in the audience felt connected to. There's a section in the ballet, it's Dolcissime me, and it's basically I surrender. I give myself up. And it's right before the repeat of the O Fortuna in my version, and all the dancers just come out and kneel or stand and face the audience. And I wanted the audience to have that moment after they've seen all the struggles of each of these dancers throughout the ballet and how they deal with their life. I wanted them to be able to look at these dancers and go, I was there. That was me. I remember that time in my life and feel a kindred. As a choreographer, when I choreograph like story ballets, for kids there's one thing where I just want them to enjoy it, but when I go into working on more heavier work, I really want the audience to just walk away talking. I really don't care about what. As long as I've sparked a conversation and I've sparked some kind of feeling in them that they have to get out of them, I feel like my job is done. The entertainment is always there. We have this balance between art and entertainment, I feel, in all sides of art, but in dance I think it's very prevalent. And to be able to have an audience walk away just going, that was me. I know that moment in my life. It was a luxury. It was a luxury of my entire dance career to have that experience.
Well, creating a character for someone without words is different than an actor has. I mean, how is choreography different than acting, for instance?
Actually, there's so many teaching methods in acting that actually go right into dance. Stanislavski method is probably the primary method that dancers use. A lot of Stanislavski's work was about finding the physicality of the character first. Exactly what we do, because we don't have a second.
Understanding the text. I mean, Carmina Burana is a ton of text.
Right, exactly. Understanding the text and seeing how, I mean, it gets a little bit easier when we go into story ballets. Carmina was presenting theory, presenting concept. Once you get into a story ballet like a Dracula or any of
Sleeping Beauty.
Yeah, Sleeping Beauty, Aladdin, any of these kind of ballets, you have storyline. It's not as ethereal.
Right,
so,
there's a narrative.
Like Renfield and Dracula. What is that kind of crazy, and how does that physically like contort you? And being able to play, having the lack of fear to actually not always make steps pretty, to let some things be grotesquely beautiful. There's these beautiful lines that when I got to choreograph Dracula, there's beautiful lines that Renfield creates that are not in any ballet syllabus anywhere, and it's great to be able to have a group of dancers who will investigate those and
go to the edge.
Yeah, go to the edge and feel the contortion of lines. You know, for us, ballet is all about line, and when you take this length and then contort that and twist it and see how many different ways our bodies can react. One of the hardest things for dancers, and one of the things I love to do, which drives them bonkers, is just standing still. But there's such a power to being able to be in a character and stare out at your audience.
Right.
And just make them know where you're at and then go back into movement. It gives them this moment of pause where they can take you in. And finding the character in any role that you dance is that moment. The first thing I used to do as a dancer was when I would get a role, I would stand. And I would think about what different things would be in this man's posture. I still do Drosselmeyer for Nutcracker. Drosselmeyer has...
Drosselmeyer.
Yeah. Drosselmeyer has all these hand twitches. It's just one of the things that happens for him. Like, he tinkers with toys and builds things all the time. So even... especially with the kids he can be open and like play. The minute adults come up to him to introduce themselves and say hello, he has to go back to what is comfortable for him. And finding little moments like that are the joy of creating any character in dance.
Now, you mentioned steps. I mean, from the very earliest day, when you're teaching 5-year-olds, are they learning to dance on point the way they used to in ballet company?
No, on point usually happens when they're 13, 14, right? Somewhere in there. Yeah, there's a progression that leads up to working on point. So for point work, there has to be some growing up that they have to do, not mentally as much as physically. We have to make sure that their bone structure can handle it, that they're in the right health for it. And point work is, I mean, it's a very
strenuous.
Strenuous. It's an odd concept. Here, go stand on something about this big with all of your body weight, and we have to like make sure that their bodies are ready for it, as well as their technique. It's just a process that they need to grow into, and every kid is going to be at a different age when they go on board.
And that's the classical ballet technique.
Yes, that's classical ballet technique, and then we work from classical ballet technique when we get to choreograph. You know, we build the structure. It's like any art. You learn all of your tools, and then you decide as an artist or as a choreographer, how much can I mess with those tools to really see what new can happen.
And so what lies over the horizon for the New York State Ballet?
The company's growing. It's wonderful. We have a full season here in 2018-19. We're doing a gala performance in October, plus Alice in Wonderland, Nutcracker, our tradition every year, which is a wonderful experience. And then we're doing a Great Gatsby in the spring, as well as Aladdin. And then for the future, there's so many things that we've already started talking about and dabbling about. I have an idea for possibly doing a Three Musketeers ballet, and like just doing. We want to be able to sit here and really present to Rochester a plethora of different kinds of dance. And we have the dancers to do it, and we have this wonderful city that accepts the art, so let's go out there and play.
And a lot of young dancers in development.
Oh, bunches and bunches. The school's growing and the company's growing every day.
That's great. So tell us the website one more time so people can become involved.
So it's NewYorkStateBallet.org. The company is housed in Brighton right now. It's a wonderful, wonderful place, and I really have found a home here in Rochester in the arts, not just in the work that I do, but in being able to go out and see as much art as I get to see.
Well, that is a marvelous thing to say. Thank you so much for coming in the spotlight.
Eric, thanks for having me.
Yes, indeed.
Take care, man.
My guest has been Rob Royce. He's the ballet master for the New York State Ballet. Thanks for being with us.